Howdy, howdy. Welcome to my run cast. It's been a minute. Been away for a bit for a number of reasons. I got sick. I just didn't want to spread it at the gym, so I wasn't at the gym for a little bit. And then I went to the hospital and ended up in a situation. It was for a checkup, and I ended up in a situation where I couldn't train for a while. So now I'm back to it after that's been cleared up. And it's one of these things where I feel like I'm singing the opening lines to Mama's Gonna Knock You Out all the time. Like, don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. Like, I just feel like I've been stopping and starting for a while. Starting from like my last fight, really, when my shin split open, and then I was recovering from that because of the infection, and then I went to Italy, and so I was recovering from time off, and then came back and got sick, and then all this stuff, whatever. Point is, I'm back. I have 3 things I want to talk about in this runcast, and I've debated in my head about whether I'm gonna say that first, because if I don't get to all 3 of them, then I've made empty promises that I didn't intend to do, but it's just the fact of getting lost in what I'm talking about and forgetting. So, hopefully, saying this is a reminder to myself that there are 3 things I want to talk about. And I think I'm going to do them in kind of a weird order. So I'm going to go with what's immediately relevant, because I'm just coming out of training. And then I'm going to talk about something that's a little bit heavy, a little bit personal, a little bit of a PSA. And then at the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about Thai. So, A1, I have a boxing fight at the end of this month. I'm going to be boxing at Chachai Sasakun's gym. He does his own promotions now, and he's invited me to fight on him a number of times, and he had a hard time finding opponents and is falling through, so this time's actually happening, I hope. So as of right now, I have a fight on the 30th of November in boxing. This will be my 3rd boxing fight ever. I'm not comfortable boxing. I feel weird because I always want to like clinch and throw knees and stuff, and you can't do that in boxing. But so I've been doing a lot more boxing sparring and a lot more boxing, shadow boxing, as a way to kind of like prepare for this. Watika. But so I was just at Rambaugh's gym, and I normally go to Tapia's first and do pad work, and then I go over to Rambaugh's for clinching. So I split my time between these 2 gyms, and I'll kind of do shadow boxing at either one, depending on how fast I get over to Rambaugh's or how much time I have waiting for Tapia to hold for me, and that kind of thing. But today, Tapia was not at the gym, which I didn't know when I went, so I ended up doing everything at Rambaugh's. So I did pad work, and then he put me in for boxing sparring, and then after boxing sparring, he had us stay in for regular sparring, and then we did clinch at the end, which we always do. But it was basically the way he does sparring at his gym is however many people, like however many pairs you can put in there, you make everyone go around and spar with everyone until he basically tells you to stop. So after we had done everyone twice, I looked at Naksu and I'm like, how many rounds are we doing? And he's like, I don't know. We have to wait for Ajahn to tell us when to stop. And then he didn't tell us to stop. He told us to just go into regular Muay Thai sparring, and we did more. So counting this morning, sparring with with Yodkun Pan, I've done 23 rounds of sparring today, and I'm pretty cooked. I'm pretty tired. But the thing about my sparring with boxing, because I'm not a boxer and I'm kind of uncomfortable in it, is that what I'm focusing on, like what I'm choosing to focus on when I do boxing sparring, is my feet. Like I'm just trying to do boxing feet all the time. And this is basically the thing that blew my mind about working with Chachai Sasakun the first time, is that he opened up my understanding towards weight transfer, and he's just brilliant at it. But since that first time working with him, it's been something that I've brought into my Muay Thai, and things that I've kind of found more efficiency and economy and power in. And so now I'm trying to do it in boxing. And it's a little bit weird for me because I don't have, everything is about feeling in both Muay Thai and boxing, but I don't have the feeling for boxing so much. So I kind of like tell myself to do certain combinations or something in order to just keep myself moving. But I find like much deeper or bigger air pockets in my boxing than I do in my Muay Thai, because in my Muay Thai I've spent so long in my shadow boxing work trying to smooth out those air bubbles. Air bubbles, for people who don't follow me, are what I refer to these like gaps when you kind of stop moving. So you'll see people who like take a couple of steps and then stop before they throw a strike, or they throw a couple of strikes and then they stop before they can like reset to a different position. So it's basically like a hiccup. It's a lack of fluidity and continuity in what you're doing. And they're basically just these little hiccups in your movement that you can get hit while this is happening, or you can kind of have like a I don't know what to do kind of. And like, so trying to smooth these out, to me, it's like when you're trying to put film on a car window and you get those little air pockets and you have to like push them towards the edge to like make full contact across the entire film. That's what I think of when I'm talking about like having no air bubbles in your movement, is that you just continuously move. It doesn't mean you're endlessly striking, but when you're not striking, your feet are always still moving. When you're striking, your feet are moving. Like in boxing, because you don't have leg kicks or checks or knees or clinching or any of that stuff, there's much more continuity of the feet than there is in Muay Thai. This is not to say there's not footwork in Muay Thai. Muay Thai is full of footwork, and people who say otherwise just literally don't know what they're talking about, so don't listen to those people on that subject. But it's different for boxing, because it's just like super continuous with boxing, because you're only striking with your upper body. And you have to carry all those strikes with your lower body. So I'm working through these different partners, and they're different sizes, and actually the tallest, biggest guy seemed to have the best boxing. And this might be that because he was so much bigger than me, he actually just could see much better than the other two, because he's so much longer. He had a lot more time to kind of like see me at a different distance and register what I was doing, and so he could kind of pick me off. But I was having the hardest time with the biggest, longest guy. But the interesting thing about a round robin of like changing changing partners like that over and over again, is that you have to find adjustment within a single round, which is a time pressure, but you also can't capitalize on it that much in that round, because then you're going to change to another partner, and they're going to have a different thing that you have to solve. But what's very interesting about doing it that way is something that you just noticed with the kid before. You can apply to the second kid and be like, oh, he doesn't have that length, or like, oh, he doesn't have that same sidestep, and so I'm going to be able to do these things on him that I wasn't able to do on the last one. And it makes you really sharp. Like, it makes you really, in Thai they call it Gae Moy, which means to like solve someone's Moy. And it's something that Golden Age fighters talk about as being like the sign of a good fighter, is that they can solve their opponent in the ring. So it's not like you went in there with the perfect plan. It's like you saw what was happening and adjusted within that time, and that makes you a very good fighter. And I was thinking to myself that this is actually a very good way to train how to solve, because a lot of the things that makes a fighter a great fighter, like timing, faking, rhythm, gamoy, group, control of distance, all of these things, these are not things that you can like verbally instruct to someone. This is something, all of these things are things that you kind of have to do under pressure a lot and figure out as you go. And so when you see these really good fighters who have all of these qualities, they figured that out in sparring or in fighting a lot or in moving around with other people. It's not like they were explained it really well or they have some like innate understanding of it. Maybe they do, like maybe they understand how to trick people much faster because that's part of their personality, but they have to actually do it. Like they have to actually get in the ring with sparring partners and work on that stuff and figure it out. So that to me today was very well illustrated in stuff that works against Yod Kun Pan in the morning doesn't work against Kid A this afternoon, but it does work against Kid B and then not again with Kid C. But what works against Kid C also works against Kid A, like blah, blah, blah. All this stuff is a way to like sharpen your IQ as a fighter, which I think is very interesting. And I'm glad that I have the opportunity to do those things. Oh, this dog likes to bite me. Hey, how come you think you wear a muzzle, huh? How come he's wearing a muzzle? because he bites. It's why. He doesn't wear it all day. They put it on when they leave in the afternoon. Because they can't monitor him. Okay, so the second thing I wanted to talk about, a little bit heavier, a little bit personal, and it's a little bit of a PSA. And it also comes with a little bit of like a prologue to like how I'm going to talk about this. So, the way I'm going to talk about this and why I'm choosing the language I'm choosing, I'm going to talk about for a second, which is that this is a matter of women's health, which to me, I don't want to not say women's health, because women's health itself is an incredibly political thing for the fact of it being women's bodies. Women's bodies are largely unstudied, not given priority, not given funding, all of these things. Like what globally we know about women's health is like lacking. It's like seriously bad. And so I do want to talk about women's health because politically that's a very charged thing, and the statements I'm making about taking care of yourself and worrying about yourself are charged by this women's health thing. But I also want to talk about it in a way that's inclusive, because this is not only a women's health issue. This is something that affects men, both trans men and cis men, because it is a part of the body that is politically and socially charged as being only on women. But the fact of the matter is, biologically, realistically, in the fucking real world, men also have tissue like this on their bodies and are also susceptible to this. It's just way less talked about for men because, one, it happens much less for men, and two, it's something judged to be female. And so it's like, oh, well, that doesn't happen kind of thing. So I'm going to be talking about breast tissue as opposed to breasts. And the reason I'm talking about breast tissue is because that is the part of the body that's being affected. And breasts are something that we have socially constructed to be only something that women have, and it's very sexualized, and it might be something that's very dysphoric as a word for people to hear. And I don't want people to think that way, because I actually do want people to be taking care of their own health. And if you tell men, check your breasts, this is dysphoric for some people, ridiculous for other people, and something that people will be like, that's not a problem for me, simply because of the word. If people think that I'm being ridiculous about this, I'm gonna make this one personal too. I grow little chin hairs, more so as I'm getting older. My mom does too, like runs in our family. This is like naturally, biologically, the way that hairs grow, exactly the same as hairs, facial hairs grow on a man for a beard, but I don't call this a beard because that's dysphoric for me. I am a cis woman, I consider myself a woman, and saying I have a beard is something that makes me really unhappy about myself, and so I don't want to say that. And so these little hairs, even though there's just a few of them, I'm gonna call chin hairs, whiskers, witch whiskers, fuzz, whatever, cute words that are appropriate for women to use, even though biologically it's exactly the same as a beard, but I don't want to call it a beard because that makes me feel bad about myself. So that's why I'm going to be saying breast tissue instead of breast, is that men have breast tissue and men don't have breasts. And so using that word that is correct, the way I'm going to deal with chin hairs is the same way you would deal with a beard, but I'm more likely to do something about it when you call it chin hairs instead of calling it a beard. So that's what I'm talking about here. Anyway, Kevin and I went to the hospital to do like health checkups. He was doing like an annual kind of like full scan thing. And I went kind of like to be a pal, to like support, be there also. But I was going to be there for hours and hours. And so I decided to get health checked too. But because of my age, I don't need like a full health scan. But I'm at an age now where it's recommended to get your first mammogram. And my mom had breast cancer, so I'm like, that's a good idea, I should do that. And a couple of months ago, as I was like scratching my armpit, I did find a lump that I hadn't noticed before, but I have lumpy breasts, so I was just kind of like, I don't know. I noticed it, it's definitely different, but I wasn't really worried about it because I also have lumpy breasts. So it's just kind of a like, clock that, mention that to the doctor as I'm going in for my first mammogram. So this is not a comfortable process. I have very little breast tissue. I do not have a lot going on there. So in terms of the mammogram, where they're just trying to like, you know that like, I think they call it slime that kids play with? This tech was with her gloved hand basically trying to like cheat slime on the plate, which was very uncomfortable for me. Seemed more or less useless in terms of what I was seeing actually happen with this like squashing process. So if you have very little breast tissue, it's very difficult and cumbersome to get a mammogram on a mammogram machine. But the second part, like if you have a lot of breast tissue, I imagine it's very uncomfortable and it might really hurt the way that they like squish it. When you have very little, it's just very complicated, difficult and uncomfortable, but not painful. But the second part was to do like an ultrasound. Ultrasound, they start with the right side, nothing, everything looks great. Then they go to the left side and they're like, where's this lump that you found? And I like show them. And so they start there. And the tech starts like taking pictures and measurements and labeling. And I'm like, okay, well, they're probably just being thorough because I told them. So they're probably just making like a track for next year so they can see whether this gets bigger or not. And then the more they move around, the more they're finding other things that they start measuring. And I'm like, I didn't feel as other ones. Like, maybe this isn't great. So I go and I talk to the doctor, and he's like, we've found 3 lumps. 2 of them we're concerned about because they have like weird edges, and one of them we're pretty sure is just a fibroid, which is like not a big deal. So we're gonna need to do a biopsy, because if you get this stuff early and treat it early, there's like 100% recovery rate. My mom recovered from her breast cancer. So I'm like, yeah, that seems like a really good idea. So this hospital's awesome. They basically send me upstairs to sign a permission slip being like, yes, I understand and will pay the fee to do this biopsy, because that's not what I had made my appointment for. And so the biopsy itself, they like shoot you with a local anesthetic, and then they use this needle to go in, and they use an ultrasound to be able to see. And I really loved my doctor. He was really wonderful. He told me every single thing he was going to do before doing it. He actually asked me to watch the screen that he was using so that I could see the actual process. He's like, do you see your tumor? Do you see my needle? And then it's like a harpoon. He hits a button and it goes chunk, and it like spears the tumor to take like a core sample out of it. And he did this like 5 times on each one. And hi baby. And it does not hurt at all. When they first inject the anesthetic, that hurts a little bit. Like the needle hurts for the anesthetic, but then the anesthetic starts to work and you stop feeling it pretty fast. You can just beat me. And then when he was doing the second lump, I felt the first chunk of the needle. It didn't hurt so much, but like it hurt a little bit. And so I just let him know. I'm like, I felt that one. He's like, okay, stop, don't worry, I'm gonna inject you with some more anesthetic. You shouldn't be feeling any of this. Injected me with more, which I did not feel, and then continued with the biopsy, and I felt none of it. So this is all to say that it felt like a very scary experience when it was described to me first, but then when it actually happened, it's very not scary. It really, really does not hurt while it's happening. And then he had me lay in a room with an ice pack for 30 minutes, and then he was gonna come put some like waterproof gauze on it and stuff. And when he came back in, I had not stopped bleeding, and he's like, you should have stopped by now. So he made me basically hold pressure on myself for another 30 minutes for the bleeding to stop. And then he came back in and it was fine. He taped me up. And he let me know, he's like, this might be very painful tonight. So if it is, just take some, Tylenol. He gave me some anti-inflammatories, and he's like, keep using ice packs. I really appreciated that he said to me that it might be really painful. When I did an egg donation in America before coming to Thailand, this was the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life. And they had told me I might have some mild discomfort when I went home. And I've read that they do this on purpose, because if you tell people they're going to be in pain, they will experience pain. And if you tell them they'll be uncomfortable, they just experience it as discomfort. And I don't know studies on this shit, but for me, I was really upset that they told me it was going to be discomfort, and then I was in pain that made me like unable to sit down, stand up, walk. I was gonna throw up all the time. It was really awful. So I was really happy that this doctor was like, this might be very painful, and then it for me wasn't. Like, I couldn't lift my arm. It was incredibly black, like it was very, very dark. And he told me I couldn't sweat for like 4 days, which is why I couldn't train. And the reason I couldn't sweat is because this bandage is waterproof, so I could like shower and stuff like that with water coming this way. But when you sweat, the water comes out of your body, and so it will come underneath the bandage, and it'll make the bandage come off. So that's why I wasn't allowed to sweat. But I really couldn't do anything, because in Thailand, you cannot do anything without sweating. I couldn't play with the bun. I couldn't like go outside for very long. I couldn't ride my motorbike. I had to be in a car with aircon. I had to like sit in aircon for 4 days. It really sucked. And then I was kind of, you know, it takes like 5 days to get the results back from the biopsy. And I felt kind of good or relaxed about it in the sense that the doctor had made it clear from the onset. He's like, if you catch this early, have the surgery and deal with it to remove them, the recovery rate is very, very good. And so I wasn't really worried so much about having cancer, mostly because I was like, I don't know yet, like the results haven't come back yet, and then even if it is, there's like an immediate process to take on. The part that really upset me is this prospect of having surgery. I'm really, really afraid of surgery because I've had bad experiences with being put under general anesthesia. Again, with this egg donation, which was such a fucking horrible experience. I almost died. And then when there was like a EMT team like running through the waiting room, and Kevin's like, what the hell is going on? Like, I was under, so I don't remember it. My therapist says your body remembers it, even if your mind doesn't remember it. So I have like tension and anxiety about the idea of being put under again. But the anesthesiologist said when I woke back up, he's like, you need to tell future doctors that you're very sensitive to the drugs, because my heart stopped. So I was like, okay, I'll just, make sure that goes on all of my future medical records. But so I was basically like just waiting to hear back from the doctor, and I'm incredibly lucky because the doctor called and was like, congratulations, it's not cancer right now, so you just need to check it every year and basically like see how it develops. But right now, no. So I'm not the kind of person that has a lot of follow-up questions, so I didn't ask any. And then when I told Kevin and I told my mom, there were like all these follow-up questions about like, do I have to get a biopsy next year? Is it, if it gets bigger, you do something? Like, what's the next step? I didn't ask anything, so I actually don't know. I'm just like, it's not cancer, and I check it next year. But this is kind of a thing that I wasn't sure how I wanted to talk about it. But even before I'd heard back from the doctor about whether it's cancer or not, I knew that I wanted to say something, because this was basically something that I was like, I kind of had things leading into it. Like, I had found that lump, and I kind of was like, that wasn't there before, but I wasn't really concerned about it. I was not like, I better go get that checked out. I kind of got my first mammogram because I'm of an age where they tell you that you're supposed to start, and it makes sense to, because of my family history. If you are someone who has family history or medical history where this might be something that you need to worry about, it's probably something that you should just go get checked out. Because honestly, for me, I was a little bit freaked out that on my first check, like on my first exam, they found something that they found so concerning, like 2, and one of them was actually quite large. And so it just really made me feel like I wanted to talk about it in the sense of encouraging people to just have it checked, because again, you find it really early, it's highly, highly curable, or treatable, I guess is the way to say it. And really, anyone who has breast tissue, male or female, should be having that looked at. especially if your history gives you reason to believe that your chances would be higher. So have it checked out. I'm really lucky in that right now it's not cancer, but if it were, I would be planning surgery right now and going and treating that, and basically feeling very grateful that I got that found and treated very quickly. I'm really lucky in that my mom had hers found and treated really quickly, and she's had full remission. And just, I don't know, not neglecting those things because they're scary. Like, I totally understand people who are like, I don't want to check because I don't want to know. I totally understand that kind of thinking, but it's something that Nii Shobo, who's like a coach, he's a former NFL player, and now he does like kind of mental training type stuff. I think it wasn't his quote, but he was quoting someone else, so I got it from him. But it's, do the hard things when they're easy. And that's what this feels like. It's a fucking hard thing to deal with cancer. It's a very hard thing to, like, mentally, emotionally, with family, like, physically deal with that stuff. So doing the screenings early and dealing with it, if you're lucky enough to find it early, is dealing with something that's very fucking hard when it's easy. So that's my PSA on that. And and also my, I don't know. Yeah, just get it looked at. That goes for other parts of your body as well. I'm just using the example of breast tissue because that's what I was dealing with. But you can do all kinds of exams and annuals and stuff like that. And you should do them. Like, even if it's a part of your body that you don't really want to think about, get it checked and just like call it something that doesn't make you feel horrible, because it's just part of the human body. And you can use different words for it that make you feel less dysphoric about it. Okay, so then the third thing I wanted to talk about is Thai. I don't know why I'm so into this. I want to say hi to this dog real quick. So, I've been going through these magazines, these Moisean magazines. I know you don't like my stick, poor baby. I know. I won't touch you with it. Yeah. You have eyebrows today, huh? Got little eyebrows. What a baby. So this is a little bit about pronunciation and spelling in Thai. So, in Thai, when the Thai language was codified and made into the way it's written across the entire country, despite the dialects, Thai comes from Pali Sanskrit. That's the roots that it comes from. So, like, English comes from Greek and Latin and Germanic, stuff like that. So, a lot of times, if you know Latin roots or something like that, you can understand a lot of other languages that you don't actually speak. When I was in Italy with my mom, I understood a great deal of what was being said to me in Italian, and then it was really frustrating because I couldn't answer, because I can't like make up words. I can just understand what's being said to me based on those roots. And so the Pali Sanskrit of Thai is kind of like this, where you can kind of like understand words you don't know based on the roots. And it has a lot in common with Hindu words, which also comes from Sanskrit, I think. But when they were codifying Thai language, they decided to keep the spelling of words that were loan words, even if they don't say them that way. So this can become a little bit confusing in that words are spelled in a way that's not really how they end up being pronounced. And they have this little marker that's like, it looks like a little tadpole, and it goes over letters that aren't supposed to be pronounced at all. So in English, with the word knife, which I think comes from the Germanic knife, right? You would put the kill mark over the K because you're not actually pronouncing that. So that's what they do in Thai for when you don't pronounce something. But there's also things that happen where, like, something that makes a sound at the start of a syllable makes a different sound at the end of the syllable. We have so much of this in English. If you're a native English speaker, you are so lucky that you didn't have to learn English as a second language, because so much of the rules just get thrown out the window, and we know them just because you grew up listening to it, and so you know the rule based on how things sound. But like, the letter C, the way it's pronounced in English is insane given all the different languages that we've borrowed from. So like CE will make the S sound, but like C and almost any other vowel is going to make a K sound. Like, it's really complicated. Thai has this also. The words that I want to bring in to talk to people about are names, because there are names that drive me crazy because they're not spelled in English at all the way that they're pronounced. And I'm like, kind of, part of my brain is like, oh, they're trying to keep the spelling the way that Thai kept the spelling, even though they don't pronounce it that way. And then part of me is like, just fucking spell it the way you pronounce it so that people can pronounce it. Perfect example is Wirapon. Wirapon. This is spelled on Wikipedia and like all these places. He spells it this way as Virapol, right? Veerapol. But it's pronounced Wirapon. Anytime you see a V in Thai, it is not pronounced as a V because that's not a sound that the Thai language makes. Anytime you see a V, it's going to be a W. So my name, Sylvie, here is pronounced Sinwi. Sinwi, because there's no V sound. So Virapol is Wirapon for the exact same reason my name is Sinwi, is that L at the end of a consonant makes an N sound. At the start it makes an L, at the end it makes an N. So all these names that you see an L at the end of, like Yodpunpon, N. Wirapon, N. Nampon, N. Sakmankon, N. Anytime you see an L at the end of a Thai name, it's an N. Make it an N. Anytime you see a V, make it a W. There's a frustrating thing in that there's no way for you to know this without seeing the actual Thai word, that the Thai letter Gogai, which is it makes a G sound at the start of a consonant, at the start of a syllable, makes a K sound at the end. So if you have it at the beginning, you would say something like gan, gan. But if you have it at the end, it'd be like mak with a K, mak. It's a little bit swallowed, it's less exasperated. But so the name like Gansak is spelled with a K in English, but it's not Kansak, it's Gansak. But you wouldn't know this unless you can see the Thai spelling. So that's just an annoying thing. That's not actually a rule. The rule I'm giving you is L's at the end make an N. There is no V sound. It's all W's. And then another one that's helpful. Oh man. Oh, this one drives me crazy. Anytime you see a letter with an H that's the way that we would pronounce like th, there is no th sound or the sound in Thai at all whatsoever. So the same reason you say Thailand instead of Thailand, anytime you see a TH, only say it as a T in Thai. They'll put TH in a lot of stuff. So like, there's a gym called Giat Kam Torn, and it's spelled with tons of H's. So it's like KH for the Giat, and then Kam, they do KH again, and then Torn, they do THORN. So this is like insanely hard to look at as someone looking at it in English. But there's no TH sound in Thai, so just make that a T. And anytime something makes an F sound, it should just be spelled with an F. There is no reason for PH to be used for an F sound. For some reason, when they decided to make Thai words into English with like spelling, they decided to put H's after tons of stuff that never needs it. So it is not Phuket, it's Phuket. It is not Kofifi, it's Ko-Pi-Pi. Anytime you see a PH in a Thai word or a Thai name, only say it as a P. Only. There's no PH sound in the spelling of Thai coming to English, ever. So, I can't think of other examples that would have that. I think occasionally you'll see something like, Pan, P-H-A-N. This is pon, this is not fon. Like, if you see it with an F, say it with an F, but if you see a PH in a Thai name or Thai word, it's just P. Hopefully that's helpful. Thai words and names can be really complicated, especially when you just have like non-Thai speakers pronouncing them all of the time, and so you kind of don't even know where to start. It's one of those things where like there aren't breaks between words when you're writing in Thai. So anyone who has learned German will just string a bunch of words together to create a new word. So like the word for a ticket booth, like in English, this is two words put together to make one concept, a ticket booth. German does that with like really long things. So it'll be a single word for like the device that cracks open the top of an egg for your breakfast egg. That's one long crazy word. Thai does this in that they don't put spaces between words in a sentence. They just make a break at the end of the sentence. And so names even, like, what's a really good one? So like Sangmorakat, right? So Sangmorakat is basically the light of an emerald, but they make it one thing. So if you know that this is two words, Sangmorakat, you kind of know how to pronounce that. But if you don't know where that goes, it becomes really complicated. I think Emma was telling me that someone recently on a podcast was pronouncing Nong O's name as Nongo. Honestly, how would you know? You know, like you've only ever seen it written, or you've only ever heard Westerners say it, and so you don't know that it's Nong O. Same thing with like Samkor. This is one of those G situations where it should be Samgor, but we say Samkor. So Sam A, like whatever. Hopefully I haven't rattled too much for you to forget the rules that I just gave you, but those are the rules that I thought of for Thai language, and hopefully that's helpful. It's getting dark. All right.